Couldn't have figured a better time to kind of preach about, with all the New Year's resolutions and everything, everybody trying to do better next year than they did this past year. This would be a good time to talk about discipline. And sometimes, you've seen preachers, you've heard preachers, teachers, they get up and they teach, and you can tell immediately, not only does this guy know what he's talking about, but he is one of experience. You can tell they have experience in this area. And then there's other guys like me, you'll say, what in the world? He just knows what's right. He's struggling. And so that's what we're going to look at today. Because this is one of those, I can't speak for anybody else, and I wouldn't dare try in this regard, but discipline is not easy. I've discovered that. Maybe y'all already know that, but disciplining, and I'm talking to us too, right after this, the old King James says we buffet our body daily. We've just buffeted our body. So this is a great lesson here to come right after we've had a good fellowship dinner. But discipline is not an easy thing. But it's something that needs to be employed on a regular basis. In fact, it needs to be a part of our life. And it's as though we are, as the way Paul puts it here, we are preparing and we're competing almost all at the same time when it comes to this kind of mentality. But I do want you to understand that as he defines it in physical terms, this is a mental exercise. And I say that because, out of the heart comes all of these things. How the mind goes determines a lot about how we come across, how we communicate in our relationships, the things we master and accomplish. Really very often does not depend upon the actual skill set involved, but the dedication and conviction that was involved in getting there. I know guys that they just can't stand something being broke, and they're going to fix it, and they will not quit until they fixed it. And I'm going to tell on him. I took Jimmy to a yard sale one time. He bought this clock. It's a busted clock. Didn't work. He takes it home. The next time I come over and visit him, it's scattered all over the kitchen table. I mean, parts and pieces everywhere. That clock now sits on his mantle running perfectly. It's annoying to me, people like that, because I don't have that skill. And it's like when you go to the scripture here and it's talking about how we run for the prize, Paul uses something very familiar to his audience at that time. The Greeks and the Romans all had all kinds of events and arenas wherein these kinds of things occurred. And so he used, like we would use today, football or basketball or whatever. And we're state champs, by the way. But he uses those kinds of things all the time to show how we live a Christian life and how we adapt ourselves to the Christian life. And so he starts out, do you not know that those who run for the race all run, but one receives a prize? Unless you're in America in the woke culture. Because everybody gets a ribbon. That just drives me nuts. Because that's not really how a race works. A race works and you run the race not to just participate in the race. You run the race to win. And when you remove that, why are you running? And by the way, I know lots of people really promote running. I'm not a big fan. When's the last time you saw a guy running that was smiling? Yeah, there's a lot of pain involved there. But people run because they're preparing for something, and you run in such a way that you may obtain it. There is a training exercise. When it comes to discipline, don't think for a second that you're going to make a commitment and it's just going to all fall together for you. That's not how it works. Discipline involves a focus and some kind of a goal that has to be met. In fact, you're going to find in the next verse that goal needs to be in front of you all the time. But the point is, you have to have a goal. Setting goals is a good thing. I realize by and large, most people, and you can look at stats and everything else, the percentages vary widely, but most people who make these New Year's resolutions, by the end of January, they're gone like the vapor of our life. I mean, it just doesn't exist anymore, and we've forgotten about it. Then we go back to what we are familiar with, comfortable with, and what we're okay with. And that's basically where we have our problems mentally, being okay with where we are. Nobody who is training to win is okay with where they are. And even if it's a race where you can beat everybody around you, you're still looking for a time. That's how that race is quantified. You're looking for a time. There's a goal. And you're never satisfied with where you are. And so as long as we have the goal, we've entered into the effective environment of discipline because we have a goal. We can't be happy with where we are. But notice what he keeps saying, and he kind of adds to that, everybody who competes is temperate in all things. There is a lot of background work that is not seen when you get to a certain point. I always get tickled. Watch the Olympics. Now, I don't know whether you're familiar with some of the events in the Olympics and what it takes to compete at that level, because that's top end, folks. And you look at somebody, and a guy's running a 100-meter dash. They don't do yards anymore, that's us old people. But they do a 100-meter dash. And this guy has worked for 4 years, if it's Summer Olympics, 4 years to just run under 10 seconds. Well, I guess it's faster than that nowadays. I don't know how fast they run it, but it's just outrageously fast. And for 10 seconds, the guy's on the stage, and he's up there number one because he planned for 4 years. The focus we ought to have is the goal, and the understanding is that we're preparing and everything in our life is dedicated to it. And these guys that do this for one momentary touch of the time clock, and they prepare like crazy to do that. The opposite end of this, which he's going to point out a little later in this text, the interesting part to me is, if I realize and understand and appreciate the concept of eternity, when you think about what eternity is and what we're preparing for, the whole picture switches, because what we're doing and preparing is like that 10 seconds. Our life is a vapor. We don't have much time. It's not like we've got time to kick back and just kind of plan out and, take it easy and get there eventually. No, I don't have any guarantee of my next breath. All the preparing that I have done thus far, and I'm getting older, but I could be over tonight. How well did I prepare for eternity? It's almost just the opposite of what he's pointing out here, because most people, when they run to obtain it, they're temperate. They control themselves because they've got a goal in mind, and in order to reach it, that means I have to shift my whole life to something for that moment in time. The only difference we're looking at here is that our moment in time is absent a moment. It's forever. It's eternity. And this particular situation here, it's interesting where he talks about, you run so that you may obtain the prize. I was running through some old stuff in my room and stuff. I have this chest, and it's just a little memory box. I keep stuff in it. I was thumbing through it here some time back, and all this stuff that didn't remind. I've already warned my kids, when I die and you open up this chest, be gentle, be kind. Remember your daddy well, because you're going to look at some of the stuff in that chest and go, what in the world was he thinking saving this? Anyway, the point being, I was looking through it and finding I have several silver medals, and I have a couple of bronze, and I've got 4 or 5 red ribbons and 2 or 3 white ones. Do you notice what's missing there? I don't have any blue ribbons. I don't have any gold medals. I was never first. There was always somebody in front of me. I was always a runner-up. Okay? I was running, but I just wasn't as fast as somebody else. The beauty of going to heaven is we're all number one. Now, I don't know whether you've ever looked at it like that. It's not a cocky statement. It's like we all get to win. And it's for eternity. Don't you think this brief little tiny bit of time we spend on this earth is worth the discipline to deny ourselves, take up our cross, and follow Christ? Don't you think? For an eternity? I mean, if we think about it, the quantitative attributes of this scenario is just the opposite of what Paul's talking about. And he's trying to get us to understand, you don't live long, you don't have a long time, you are preparing for eternity. What is the sacrifice, really, for an eternity with God forever? Is there anything important enough I've said this before, is there anything important enough on this earth to go to hell for? Anything? And if not, why do we not discipline? We have to have a goal, and we have to be serious about it enough to temper ourselves. But you'll notice what he says there. Therefore, I run thus. Here's the way you run. When you're temperate in things, and you also understand what your goal is, I don't run with uncertainty. And then he throws in another analogy about fighting. I don't think he's encouraging fighting, okay? But that was very common at that time. They had something similar to boxing or cage fighting or things of that nature. In fact, they threw Christians in the big arena and had them, fight people and get killed. But he's saying, I fight not as one who beats the air. Somebody mentioned a while ago, and I kind of use this as my analogy because it's so funny. I don't know whether y'all ever remember Sanford & Son. I don't know who it was that told me about it. Said, yeah, Ronnie knows what I'm talking about. He's doing it back there. Sanford & Son always talked, and there was one episode where there was this fighter, Joe Louis Jr. or something like that. He was going to be in the promotion with, and he started saying, yeah, I can fight. And you've seen Sanford, he'd throw his arms out like this. It's just crazy because that's not a way a boxer would win. He'd get tattooed the minute he did that. But the whole point was, you don't fight the air. When you fight, you protect yourself and you cover yourself up as you jab forward to a particular point. That's the way a fighter does. There's some thought process that goes into it. You have to be very skilled in what you're doing. That doesn't come by accident. It comes with lots and lots of practice. And I realized that during the course of that, all of that practice is not fun. As much as I loved basketball, I never loved practice. I got to be honest with you, it wasn't fun. The fun was the game. That was when I had a blast. But of course, I couldn't even play the game had I not been active and involved and focused in my practice. I don't know whether this is a rude question or not, but how many of you practice in your mind? You don't have to go, vocal and scare your wife or your husband. But how many of you practice in your mind? What am I going to say when I meet so-and-so and I want to introduce them to Jesus and change their life? Do you ever practice that in your mind? Have you ever focused so much on trying to save a soul that you're trying to drum up scenarios wherein I'll say this and have the right kind of response? I do that all the time. As a matter of fact, I have researched and rehearsed in my mind over and over and over again what I'm going to say when someone in my family whom I love dearly comes back to me and says, oh, Jeff, I have sinned terribly and I need somebody to help me. I have rehearsed in my mind what I'm going to say and how I'm going to help them get back to God where they need to be, because right now their soul is in jeopardy of eternal hellfire. If they keep doing what they're doing, they're not going to heaven. Have you ever rehearsed that in your mind to where it's down so well that at the bare mention of some topic or some trigger word of some sort, you immediately know where to go with Scripture and the thought from God? This is what you need to know from God and Jesus. This is what they said. This is what the Spirit records for us. Do you have it in your mind that well? That's what he's talking about there. I don't beat the air. No, everything that I do is focused. I know exactly where I'm going and what I'm going to say and how I'm going to do it because I've rehearsed it in my mind over and over because I love that soul. Finally, he said, therefore, and this is the real rubber meets the road here, okay? I discipline my body and bring it into subjection. Now, why do you think during the course of all this, he's talking about all these athletic events and being focused and knowing what you're going, how to fight, how to run, how to do what you need to do? Why is he bringing up this idea of I discipline myself? Because I realize there's a rule of donkey, and we've talked about that before. The fact that if the donkey tells you the truth, you just disregard the facts of the donkey. Go with the truth. Always go with the truth. But folks, as someone has said once before, you can preach a better sermon than you can speak very often in how you react, respond, and live. And so therefore he makes the comment, I discipline my body and bring it in subject. Why? Because I don't want to be lost. After I have talked and preached and shown others how to live, I myself will be disqualified if I don't live what I'm preaching. You know, the one thing that ought to be the focus of everyone's discipline is disciplining one's self. Over and over in the New Testament, we find places where God says, you need to take care of yourself. The big judging comment that's made in Matthew 7:1. If they would just follow the text right on in and get the context in with judge not that you be not judged, Why? With what judgment you judge, that's what you'll be judged with. Well, I want people to be judged by the Bible. That's what I judge me by. And I've got a long way to go. Can't speak for you. But I'm still working on this discipline thing. And you know, as the new year rolls around, I know sometimes we need epochs in our life, the periods of time in our life when we sit back, we do a little retrospective thinking, introspective thinking, and say, you know, this is where I am, that's where I've been, this is where I need to go. This is what this passage is talking about when it comes to discipline. Because anybody that's running to win the prize hasn't won it yet. You follow? That's something future. And what you're anticipating is winning. With Christ, I can do all things. So that's the way I'm going to discipline. I'm going to sacrifice everything I have, as we all Christians will do. We're going to sacrifice everything we must sacrifice in order to get to heaven. Because when it comes down to it, the discipline that we enact right now is going to make an eternal difference. And oh, how brief, and I'm getting older, how brief our life is. As I was looking through my chest with all those red ribbons and those silver and bronze medals that I won because I was the runner-up. And it's terribly embarrassing sometimes to be the runner-up. I mean, I won third in district in high jump. I was every bit of 5'6", maybe. The two guys I competed against were 6'2". And you know how the stands are when they give the medals out. Number one's up here, number two's over here, and the third place is down here a little lower. It's hard to get a newspaper picture of a guy 6'2" and a guy 5'6" on a podium that's way down here. When they put the picture in the paper, they had full-bore guys, 2, 1, and 2. Then they had my head, because I'm short. We're not third runner-up. We're not second place. In Christ, we're first, and it's worth the effort to discipline our bodies, make ourselves behave. So after we tell others about how wonderful heaven's going to be, we get to see them there. I would encourage you, discipline is worth it. It's not easy. Like I said, I'm the most disqualified to be talking about this because I struggle with this, but I still struggle with this. It will not overcome me. And through Christ I can do all things. I would encourage you in that way too. If you're not doing what you should be, where you should be, we encourage you to do that as we stand and we sing.